It began in the summer of 1982, when a boy riding his bike along the Green River near Seattle noticed something floating in the water. At first, he thought it was a mannequin. It wasn't. Police arrived to find the body of a young woman, her hands bound, strangled, discarded like trash in the murky shallows. Within weeks, more bodies appeared, each eerily similar. As the number climbed, locals whispered about a phantom haunting the Pacific Northwest, the Green River Killer. He was the ghost of suburbia, invisible, patient, and terrifyingly efficient. The river wasn't just a dumping ground, it was a symbol, a silent witness to one of the most horrifying killing sprees in modern history. Gary Leon Ridgway looked like any blue-collar man in Seattle. A quiet truck painter, a churchgoer, a man who smiled at his neighbors and waved to children. No one suspected that behind his calm demeanor lay a monster who prowled the city's red light districts by night. He targeted women's society, already ignored sex workers, runaways, and the vulnerable, those least likely to be missed quickly. Ridgway was methodical. He didn't torture. He didn't boast. He strangled with his bare hands, sometimes with a ligature, often while having sex. Then he would dispose of the bodies in wooded areas or the Green River itself, returning later to perform acts of necrophilia with his victims. To the world, he was invisible. To his victims, he was the last face they would ever see. By late 1983, the number of missing women had reached alarming levels. The King County Sheriff's Office launched what would become one of the largest investigations in U.S. history, the Green River Task Force. At the helm was Detective Dave Reichert, a man who would spend nearly 2 decades haunted by one question: who is killing these women? Detectives tracked every possible lead: cab drivers, Johns, truckers, even river maintenance workers. But Ridgway was cautious. He never stood out. He passed lie detector tests. He cooperated when questioned. Police were chasing a ghost, a man who killed with the efficiency of a machine. Ridgway's method never truly changed. He strangled his victims, then left them nude, often in clusters of 2 or 3, in remote forested areas near the Green River or airports. He would scatter their belongings far from the scene to confuse investigators. Sometimes, he revisited the bodies weeks later, an act both compulsive and ritualistic. This wasn't about lust alone. It was about control, dominance, and the thrill of getting away with it. Each time he wasn't caught, it reinforced his sense of invincibility. To Ridgway, these women weren't human, they were objects to destroy, trophies of his private war. The investigation took a strange turn when detectives received an unexpected offer from another serial killer. Ted Bundy, awaiting execution in Florida, offered his expert insight into the Green River case. Bundy told investigators that the killer was likely returning to the dump sites, revisiting his victims, reliving his crimes. It was an eerie case of one predator analyzing another. And disturbingly, Bundy was right. Investigators set up surveillance in the forests and riverbanks, but never caught Ridgway in the act. For years, the trail went cold. The killer blended back into the ordinary world, fixing trucks, attending church, living among the people who feared him. By the mid-1990s, the murders had slowed, but the scars they left remained raw. Most of the victims had no justice. Then, in 2001, technology finally caught up with the killer. Detectives reopened the Green River evidence boxes, now decades old, and extracted preserved DNA samples from victims' clothing. When the results came back, the match was unmistakable. Gary Ridgway, the man who had once been interviewed and released, now stood exposed by the microscopic proof of his guilt. After nearly 20 years, the Green River Task Force had their man. When confronted with the evidence, Ridgway didn't deny it. Instead, he began to talk, in chilling, emotionless detail. He admitted to killing so many women that he couldn't remember them all. He described strangling them mid-act, dumping their bodies like garbage, and returning to the sites to commit unspeakable acts. At one point, he said, "I killed so many women, I have a hard time keeping them straight." He told investigators he targeted prostitutes because no one would miss them. He said he wanted to kill as many as possible to clean up the streets. There was no rage in his voice, just cold efficiency. In 2003, Ridgway pleaded guilty to 48 counts of murder. though he admitted to many more, possibly over 70 victims, making him the most prolific serial killer in American history. In exchange for his cooperation and the recovery of additional remains, prosecutors spared him the death penalty. He was sentenced to 48 consecutive life terms without parole. During sentencing, families of the victims confronted him, crying, cursing, demanding answers. Ridgway barely reacted. Only once did he shed a tear, when one father said, "I forgive you." The courtroom was silent. For the first time, the killer seemed human, and that made him even more terrifying. The Green River Killer changed the landscape of criminal psychology and law enforcement. He proved that serial killers could live ordinary lives, hide in plain sight, and evade justice for decades. His crimes reshaped how America viewed missing persons, especially marginalized victims. He became the embodiment of predatory evil disguised as normalcy. The Green River itself, once a place of calm, became synonymous with horror. Locals still say that when the mist rises off the water, the river remembers. Today, Gary Ridgway remains in Washington State Penitentiary, a frail old man who once stalked the night like a phantom. He paints, he reads the Bible, he eats in silence, but his name still chills investigators who work the case, not because of how he killed, but how ordinary he was. He wasn't a genius, he wasn't insane. He was just a man who found pleasure in power and the anonymity of evil. And that's what makes him the most terrifying kind of monster, the one who looks just like everyone else.